Alright, everybody. So, it's about halfway through January of 2018 as of the recording of this. So, I've had a decent amount of time to reflect on 2017 and the media and all sorts of things that came out in that year. And I gotta say, as a whole, the year was pretty crazy. We all know that. I'm not going to talk about that at all. As for media, as for games, movies, and albums, it was a really, really great year. And in working at the place that I work, we have a year-end list where we list our top 3, top 5, top 10, whatever favorite things of the year: albums, movies, concerts, stand-up shows. And I chose a top 3 list for my top 3 video games, movies, and albums of the year. And I would like to share that with you guys. So just sit back and listen to my opinions on my top 3s of the year. Starting with video games, my number 1 favorite video game to come out of 2017 was most definitely The Legend of Zelda Breath of the Wild, and I'm sure that doesn't really come as a surprise to most people, especially those who have played it. It's a fantastic game. It gives you all of this freedom that it has been seen in other games. Of course, it's an open world game. Open world games have been done before, but the way it does it is so vivid, it's so fluid in its execution, and so different from other games I've played of the sort. And it just felt so fresh. And I'm really, really glad that Nintendo did what they did with this. They took a huge risk trying this out, and it paid off tenfold. It's a fantastic video game with a fantastic story, combat, mechanics. It's great. It's a really, really great game, and I keep coming back to it when I just need something relaxing to play. And when you talk to people about this game, it's a different experience for everybody, and I think that's a really, really big thing. That's a really big deal as to why it worked so well. Anybody you talk to about Breath of the Wild has a different story about how they got to this thing, because as soon as you step out the front doors, after completing a bit of a tutorial, mind you, you're just thrown into this open world and told, go save the princess. And you can't. You can run straight to the boss and try and fight him if you want to. You're going to fail, but, I mean, you can try. And that's huge. That's a really, really big deal. And some people do that. Some people try and just rush to the boss as soon as they can and beat him quickly. Some people take their time and do all of the 4 dungeons, I suppose, first. Like, that's what I did. Other people don't do that, don't fight the final boss until they've done everything, until they've collected all the Korok seeds, until they've unlocked all of the shrines, got all of their health and stamina maxed out. And honestly, to people who did that, I salute you. That is amazing. I do not have the patience to do that. And that just goes to show how fantastic a game it is and how fresh it is. Legend of Zelda Breath of the Wild is a breath of fresh air, and I'm not the first person to say that. I didn't make that up. On to my number 2, my second favorite game of the year. It would have to be Divinity Original Sin 2. And if we're just going purely on time played, in like the density of the time played, I think I spent 40 hours on that game in 5 days, something like that. It sunk my time. I could not stop playing, and I tried playing it again yesterday, and I just felt kind of out of it. I felt a little bit lost, but that's because it's so deep, and I haven't played it in a long time because I've been busy with work and other video games. And it's just absolutely incredible how in-depth. If you like Dungeons & Dragons, or if you've ever been interested in playing Dungeons & Dragons and you just like role-playing games, play Divinity Original Sin 2. It feels just like you're playing Dungeons & Dragons, and this comes from somebody who frequently plays that. The combat feels almost exactly like combat in Dungeons & Dragons plays out. It's so deep, and the characters make sense, like they belong in that world, and some of them you like, some of them you don't like, and you have a reason for all of this. And I'm not going to get in too much into the story because it's a very deep and complicated story, and I honestly can't begin to explain it. Not to say it's hard to understand, I'm recording this at 1 in the morning, and I don't want to go too in deep into the story of Divinity 2. But it's fantastic. It's got a great story, great soundtrack, beautiful, beautiful visuals, and I highly recommend anybody who hasn't played it, just give it a shot. Just give it a shot. My number 3 game of the year would definitely have to go to Night in the Woods. And Night in the Woods came out very, very early 2017, almost like so much so that I thought it came out in 2016. Quite a few people did who I've talked to about it. No, I believe it came out in January of 2017. And it is a beautifully stylized coming-of-age tale about this cat girl named May, and she had just recently dropped out of college, and she goes back to her hometown, and that's where the story kicks off. And it ranges from sort of psychedelic horror moments to beautiful just conversations about friendship and heartbreaking conversations about the philosophy of your adolescent years. May is 20 years old, and I am a very close age to that, and it really, really hits home, this story, and all of the friends just feel so vivid and deeply connected, and it really, really feels real, almost. And I wish it were longer. Not to say it's a short game, it really isn't short, but it just goes to show how good it is that I just wish there were more of it. And I can play it multiple times. There aren't different endings, but there are different ways to get to those endings. And I'm very, very excited to go through and play it more and more. So that's the games out of the way. Those are my top 3 games of the year: Breath of the Wild, Divinity Original Sin 2, and Night in the Woods. Now on to my top 3 movies of the year. And the first one I have a lot to say about. I'll try and condense it because I don't want this to be too long. But my number 1 favorite movie of 2017 was Guillermo del Toro's Shape of Water. It is a masterpiece. This is coming from a fan of Guillermo del Toro. I really enjoy his movies. And this, I believe, is his magnum opus. I do not think he can top it. And that's coming from the man who made Pan's Labyrinth, an absolutely fantastic, beautiful, and stunning movie. This is on a different level. Shape of Water is absolutely perfect in my mind. Some people say the shortcoming of it is that it's predictable. While I don't disagree that it's predictable, I don't agree that worsens the movie. In fact, I think it doesn't necessarily add to it, but it definitely doesn't take anything away. There's nothing to be gained from unpredictability in a story like this, because Shape of Water is a modern-day Beauty and the Beast. It is a fairy tale for the modern age. And in saying modern age, I don't mean it takes place in this day and age. What I mean is just in concept and in execution, it's very modern. While the movie takes place in a undisclosed sort of 60s style timeline, it's visually stunning. The music is breathtaking. The characters that you're supposed to like are so goddamn likable. The characters that you're supposed to dislike are so goddamn unlikable. Within the first 10 minutes, I fell in love with the main character, Eliza. Sally Hawkins did an absolutely outstanding job portraying this character. And if she doesn't win an Oscar for it, I'm going to be very, very disappointed. The movie is so well stylized that you would think Del Toro came from this timeline. Like, there are so many things, so many little bits. There's a scene right at the very beginning of the movie where Eliza's waiting for a bus, and sitting next to her on the bench is a large man holding a birthday cake and a balloon. And it had no reason to be there, but you didn't think twice about it because it felt like it belonged there. It was absolutely stunning how Del Toro brought this world to life, and I hope to God he continues doing things like this in the future, because I really don't think he can top it, but if he does, I will support him for the rest of my life. My second favorite movie of the year is Mike Flanagan's Gerald's Game. It is a movie based on the Stephen King book of the same name, and if we see more Stephen King book adaptations that aren't like the big things like The Shining and The Stand and Dark Tower, like maybe more of his short stories, then I will be ecstatic, because Gerald's Game was brilliant. I am a huge horror fan. I absolutely adore the genre. It is the easiest to do wrong, but it is the hardest to do best. And I truly believe that horror is the most complicated and has the potential to be the most objectively good genre. And Gerald's Game executed horror perfectly. There aren't many movies that don't rely on jump scares and spooky monsters in the dark that pop out with a loud piano noise accompanied. Even brilliant movies like Jordan Peele's Get Out still utilized a couple, sudden piano hits to startle the audience. Now, sometimes I don't necessarily think these are cheap, but when they're done badly and they're overused, then it gets very, very annoying, and it just elicits a primal startle instinct where you're immediately not scared afterwards. Whereas Gerald's Game had moments that made me jump, but they weren't jump scares, because afterwards I was still scared. I won't spoil any of them, because a couple of the jump scares, quote unquote, that I would mention are very minor spoilers, but I very much recommend that you go into this movie blind. Keeping in mind that I love horror, I don't think you should watch it if you're not a fan of the genre or would like to become a fan of the genre, as it scared me, and I am a veteran of this kind of thing, and that's what made it so good. It was a movie that actually managed to scare me. I love Mike Flanagan, the director, to start with. He is a very, very good director. Back to Gerald's Game, I thought it was absolutely fantastic, absolutely terrifying. The acting was top-notch, and I will continue to watch it over and over again. My number 3 movie of the year is Greta Gerwig's Lady Bird, and this ties back to Night in the Woods, as it's another coming-of-age story. I really like these coming-of-age stories. I relate to them a lot, and personally, Lady Bird really struck a chord with me. It's about a girl in a Christian school who goes by the name Lady Bird, and that's about it. That's the plot device of the movie, and then it sets forth in this beautiful adolescent comedy, and it's another movie that's visually stunning, has amazing acting, and honestly, it's hilarious. It's such a funny movie, but it's funny in a very real way, whereas in, say, a Judd Apatow comedy movie, you laugh because these are things no actual person would ever say. Lady Bird is funny because these characters are relatable, and these are things that actually happen to real people, and things you can imagine your real friends saying. And that really struck a chord with me. And the 2 movies that, as soon as they get Blu-ray Steelbook releases, I'm buying in a heartbeat are Shape of Water and Lady Bird. I am so excited for these 2 movies. And now, with movies out of the way, onto my final top 3 of the year, the music. And I'm a big music fan. I work in a CD store. We sell like CDs, records, movies, video games, all that sort of thing. And in working at this store, I hear a lot of new music, so I'm introduced to a lot of new artists. Granted, only one of these new artists made this list, but I'm very, very grateful to be working at a place like this, and 2018's Best Of list is set to be fantastic, with a lot of new things coming out. So, my number 1 favorite album of the year is Another Light by Red Fox, and Red Fox is a very, very little known band. If you haven't listened to them, I highly, highly recommend you go listen to their stuff right now. They have 3 albums, 2 EPs and 1 album. Red Fox is a very psychedelic rock band with heavy influences from the Pixies and Nirvana and Pink Floyd, bands like that. And I'm very, very glad I found them, as their frontman, lead singer, and manager, Vinny, runs the streaming company Vinesauce, and I mean, I'm a Vinesauce fan, and I'm very, very glad I found this band, and most of all just started listening to them because of Vinny. And these songs are very interesting. They have very emotional ties to them. They're all about something different. They all have very, very powerful, not so much powerful, just memorable lyrics. And In the Garden is one of these songs. And I think back on this song, and the opening lines are just so interesting, and they're just so memorable. And I highly, highly recommend you listen to all of these albums that I'm about to list, and play these games and watch these movies. But these albums front to back, listen to them and in one sitting. I can't quite get into words why I love Another Light. It feels good to listen to. The riffs are insanely catchy. Vinny's voice is mesmerizing, and I can't wait to see what they have coming up, including a vinyl release and a bonus song of Another Light, and I am so ecstatic for that. My number 2 album of the year is Humans by Gorillaz, and I really, really like Gorillaz. They're a fantastic band because they're not in a defined genre. There is no one genre that Gorillaz is a part of, as Gorillaz is the backing track for their features, essentially, apart from when they do very, very specific solo things. And it's just such an interesting band because once they bring other people into it, they can do any style, any genre, and pull it off flawlessly. I saw Gorillaz in concert in 2017, and that was probably my highlight of the year. I saw it with two very good friends, and I loved it. It was an amazing concert, and I would love to go see them again. And my third and final favorite album of the year is an album called Antisocialites by the band Always. And it's a very dreamy sort of pop album. I don't usually like that sort of thing, but it just feels so happy and relaxed. The lead singer's voice is lovely, and the backing tracks are so interesting and fun and lighthearted. And I'm realizing now that I'm not really explaining why these albums, especially the music I'm talking about, I'm not exactly explaining why they're good objectively, but what it meant to me, what it feels like to me. So if you liked the games and the movies that I played, like if you would rate those high up as I did, then maybe we have similar tastes, and maybe you should give these albums a listen, and you would think similar things to me. Maybe you would feel similar things as I did, because it's very difficult to explain why music is good objectively. It's a little easier to do that with a game. It's like, was the game fun? Then okay, it's objectively good. Did the movie have good acting, good writing? Then yes, it was objectively good. But with music, it's a bit different. What did it make you feel that really defined what brought it above the rest, right? And Antisocialites made me feel happy. Another Light made me feel powerful, and Humans just made me feel good. It's just funky. And I highly, highly recommend that you listen to all of these albums front to back, watch all of these movies at least twice, and play all of these games through to the end. These are my top picks for my top 3 favorite pieces of media from 2017. I hope you enjoyed. Thank you for listening.